what happens next isn't just about basketball. It's about perception, legacy, and the slippery slope of letting personal pride cloud the bigger picture. And right now, it feels like Kelsey Mitchell is walking dangerously close to that line. Let's talk vibes. Because, yeah, stats are great, highlights are flashy, but every real fan knows it's the energy that tells the real story. And the energy this season? It shifted the moment Caitlin Clark stepped on that court. If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe. From the first preseason game, when Fever jerseys started flying off the shelves and away games were suddenly selling out, it became painfully clear this wasn't the old Indiana Fever anymore. This was the Caitlin Clark show with a full ensemble cast. And look, maybe that rubbed some people the wrong way. Maybe it was hard for veterans like Mitchell, who had been holding it down through years of irrelevance, to see the spotlight shift overnight. But that's not Clark's fault. She didn't ask for the hype. She earned it. She showed up, put her head down, and let her game speak for itself. Meanwhile, Mitchell was already on guard. You could tell. There were subtle power moves all season. Little things, like who took the final shot in close games, who controlled the tempo, who spoke first in post-game interviews. And instead of embracing Clark as the game changer she is, Mitchell seemed to treat her like an interloper, like someone invading her house. But here's the truth. It was never Kelsey's house to gatekeep. The franchise needed a seismic shift, and Clark brought it. Full stop. Now, let's not pretend like Clark was perfect. She had growing pains, turnovers, defensive lapses, media scrutiny you wouldn't wish on anyone. But she took it all on the chin. Never threw teammates under the bus. Never lashed out. Never demanded praise. Meanwhile, Mitchell was playing like she had something to prove, which, again, would have been fine if it wasn't laced with what felt like a passive resentment every time Clark's name came up. Let's revisit a few moments, shall we? There was that early season game where Clark went off for 30 and dished out 11 assists, and yet, post-game, Mitchell barely acknowledged her. Just a bland, we all did our job. No hype, no excitement, just icy detachment. Almost like she was being forced to coexist instead of genuinely rooting for her teammate. Then there was a practice clip that made the rounds. Mitchell visibly annoyed after a drill. Clark jogging past with a smile, try and keep things light. The whole exchange? Awkward at best. And fans caught on. Fast. Don't underestimate the intelligence of the WNBA fan base. They see the dynamics. They read body language. And they started asking questions Mitchell probably wasn't ready to answer. Why wasn't she more excited about Clark's success? Why did she seem more fired up about proving herself than winning as a team? And most importantly, why now? Why drop a bombshell? We did it speech right when everyone was starting to believe in the collective story. It reeks of something bigger. Maybe fear. Maybe insecurity. Maybe just plain old ego. And look, we get it. Being overshadowed sucks. Especially when you've been the rock of a struggling franchise for years. But that's the business. And the greats? They evolve. They share the stage. They make space for the next generation because they know that true leadership isn't about keeping the crown. It's about passing it gracefully. And Kelsey? She's not quite there yet. Meanwhile, let's not forget what Caitlin Clark has endured this season. The fouls that didn't get called. The dirty plays. The thinly veiled animosity from some of the league's older stars. It's been a trial by fire, and she's taken it all with the poise of someone twice her age. While the media painted her as a golden girl, a lightning rod, a villain, and a savior, often in the same week, she just kept grinding. And through it all, she never made it about her. She passed the ball. She lifted her teammates. She shouted praise on the bench. She did the little things leaders do, not for the camera, but for the team. That kind of leadership, you can't teach it. You just have it. And Clark has it in spades. That's why this whole Kelsey Mitchell monologue moment hits so sideways. Because instead of seizing the chance to unite the team around a shared accomplishment, Mitchell turned it into a personal redemption arc. Like the Fever's resurgence was her solo comeback story, and everyone else was just a footnote. And that's not just tone deaf. It's dangerous. Because this team, It's so close to becoming great. They've got the pieces, the fire, the chemistry, well, almost. What they don't have is time for internal ego battles right when they're finally in playoff form. What they need right now is alignment, clarity, a shared identity. And that means Mitchell needs to take a step back, not from the game, not from scoring, but from the narrative. Because this isn't just her story anymore. It's Caitlin's, it's Odyssey's, it's Ariel's, it's Boston's, it's the whole damn roster. And the sooner Mitchell realizes that, the sooner the Fever can finally shake the weight of their messy past and become the powerhouse they're clearly meant to be. So let's pose the question, what does leadership actually look like? Is it about putting the team on your back and dropping 25 a night? Sure, sometimes. But more often, it's about knowing when to shine and when to step aside, when to let the kid take the shot, when to throw an arm around a struggling teammate, when to say, this isn't about me. Caitlin Clark has that awareness. And Mitchell? She's got the fire, the skill, the experience. But right now, she's playing the wrong role in the right story. And fans aren't stupid. They see the tension. They feel the weirdness in the post-game interviews, the missing eye contact, the awkward celebrations. You don't need a behind-the-scenes docuseries to know something's a little off. So what's next? Well, we've seen this play out before. A rising rookie steps into the spotlight. The veteran feels threatened and the locker room splinters. Sometimes it ends in a dramatic trade. Sometimes in a public feud. And occasionally, it sparks a reconciliation that turns a good team into a legendary one. So which path are we on? That's up to Mitchell. Because at the end of the day, this team needs her. Her experience, her fire, her ability to knock down clutch shots and hold the line under pressure. But it doesn't need her attitude. Not right now. Not when everything is on the line. And to be fair, maybe she knows that. Maybe that post-game speech wasn't meant to exclude Clark, but just got lost in the emotion. Maybe Mitchell's been holding in years of frustration and finally cracked. If that's the case, okay, understandable. But now, she needs to own it, address it, and shift the energy. Because the playoffs are coming. And you cannot win in the playoffs without unity. And Caitlin Clark? She's built for it. We've seen her handle March Madness pressure like it's a Tuesday workout. We've seen her take over fourth quarters with ice in her veins. And most importantly, we've seen her lift teams not with volume, but with vision. The Fever should be rallying around that. Around her. Around the whole damn team. Because this is a moment. Folks, a real one. And if Mitchell can just let go of whatever personal scoreboard she's keeping, the Fever could be unstoppable. But if she can't, well, it won't matter how many points she scores. Because the true mark of greatness isn't just what you do on the court. It's what you inspire in others. And right now, Caitlin Clark is out here inspiring everyone, including maybe Kelsey Mitchell, if she'll let her. So, yeah, that locker room speech, it was a bombshell. But the real explosion, that's still coming. So, back to our leading lady, or, depending on how you look at it, our reluctant co-star, Kelsey Mitchell. Let's not sugarcoat it. That post-game moment, it didn't just accidentally miss the mark. It intentionally skipped over what should have been the biggest unifier on this team, Caitlin Clark. Whether you're a day one Fever fan or someone who just tuned in because of the CC buzz, you could feel it. The omission wasn't subtle. It was loud. Loud in the way silence always is when something important is missing. And it brings up a bigger question. Why is it so hard for some players to share success? Is it ego? Insecurity? A chip-on-the-shoulder mentality that's been hardened over years of losing seasons and being overlooked? Maybe it's all of the above. But here's the thing. None of that justifies rewriting the narrative mid-season to make yourself the sole hero. Because we all watched what happened. We all saw the Fever dragging their feet through the start of the season, looking lost, disconnected, barely functioning as a unit. And then suddenly there's a rhythm. There's spacing. There's vision. There's flow. And guess what? That didn't just happen. That was Caitlin Clark finding her footing, elevating the pace, running the offense like a conductor running a symphony. And yeah, she had her off nights. but her presence was a spark. That's not a guess. That's not an opinion. That's what happened. And yet, Kelsey Mitchell is acting like the spark was her all along. Let's do a thought experiment. Imagine if the roles were reversed. Imagine Clark had given that speech. Imagine she stood there after a big win, looked around and said, "They counted me out, but look where I am now." No mention of the vets. No nod to Mitchell. Not even a cursory "we." You think that would have gone over well? Absolutely not. She would have been dragged on every sports talk show in America. She'd be labeled arrogant, tone-deaf, ungrateful. Headlines would scream "Rookie Diva" faster than you could refresh your feed. But when Kelsey does it, we're supposed to call it passion? Leadership? No. Let's call it what it is. A missed opportunity for unity wrapped in the ego of a frustrated vet. And let's pause here, because it's important to acknowledge that, yes, this kind of tension is normal. This is what happens when you bring together veterans who suffered through years of irrelevance and drop in a cultural earthquake like Caitlin Clark. There's bound to be friction. But the smart ones, the legends, they figure out how to use that friction. They evolve. They realize that legacy isn't about who scores the most. It's about who lifts the team when it counts. So what is Kelsey chasing here? Validation? Credit? A narrative where she's finally the one getting the flowers? If that's the case, we hear you. But there's a way to demand recognition without erasing the people standing beside you. Because what's so wild is that this could have been such a powerful moment. Kelsey Mitchell, the long-suffering star, finally leading a winning team side by side with a game-changing rookie. It's the stuff underdog stories are made of, but instead, we're left with this weird, passive-aggressive energy that feels like someone trying to rewrite the script just before the happy ending. And speaking of rewriting scripts, let's give some overdue credit to the rookie in the room. Caitlin Clark has had everything thrown at her this season. Physicality, media noise, constant scrutiny. She walks into arenas where she's the most hyped and the most hated. Every move she makes becomes a headline. And still, she shows up. Still, she plays with fire and focus. Still, she supports her teammates even when the vibe around her feels chilly. That takes maturity. That takes control. And that's the irony here. Because for all the talk of Clark being the young one, she's often the most composed person on the court. While others are flexing, fuming, or trying to make a point, she's making plays. She's sacrificing shots for better looks. She's driving attention away from teammates so they can thrive. She's doing the dirty work, the unglamorous stuff that doesn't show up on ESPN highlight reels but makes all the difference. You want leadership? That's leadership. Meanwhile, Kelsey Mitchell is giving off, "I've waited too long for this to not be about me" energy. And that's tough. We get it. But leadership isn't about timing. It's about choices. And she keeps choosing pride over partnership. And here's where things get even more dicey. Because the Fever are heading into the playoffs. And while this has been a feel-good turnaround season, the postseason is a different beast. Teams will be gunning for them. Game plans will get ruthless. And chemistry? It won't just be a nice-to-have. It'll be the thing. If Mitchell and Clark aren't fully synced, that disconnect will become a target. Opponents will exploit it. They'll force awkward switches, test the communication, isolate matchups where the trust is fraying. That kind of subtle sabotage happens fast in playoff games. And if Mitchell's more concerned with narrative than cohesion, that'll be the crack that breaks the whole structure. Let's be clear. No one's asking Kelsey to fade into the background. She's too good for that. Her scoring has absolutely helped anchor this team. But what fans are asking is simple. A little humility, a little perspective, a little respect for the journey everyone is on, not just hers. Because no matter how many years she's been on the roster, this isn't just Kelsey Mitchell's team anymore. It belongs to all of them. And most notably, it belongs to Caitlin Clark just as much as anyone else. Without Clark, this season doesn't play out the same way. Period. The media presence, the ticket sales, the fan engagement, the momentum, so much of that is tied to what she brings. And while that may bruise some egos, it's also the best thing that's ever happened to the Indiana Fever. The organization has gone from forgotten franchise to front-page material, from irrelevance to relevance overnight. And instead of fighting that shift, Mitchell should be thriving in it. She should be owning her role in this revival story, not trying to hijack it. Because here's the bittersweet truth about sports. You don't always get to be the main character. Sometimes you're the steady hand, the second act, the supporting lead that holds it all together while someone else captures the spotlight. That doesn't make you less important. In fact, that kind of role, it's the glue, the heartbeat, the thing that makes a great team legendary. But to play that role well, you've got to check the ego. You got to see the big picture. And right now, the big picture is this. The Fever have a shot to do something special, but only if the veterans let the rookies rise. Only if the team plays for each other, not for individual glory. Only if Kelsey Mitchell stops treating Caitlin Clark like a threat and starts treating her like a partner. So here we are. The playoffs loom. The eyes of the league are watching. And the next few weeks will reveal everything. Not just about the Fever's playoff chances, but about who Kelsey Mitchell really is when the stakes are highest. Will she rise as the ultimate teammate? Or will she double down on a narrative that isolates her when she could be legendary? We're watching. You're watching. And we all know this story isn't finished. Drop your takes in the comments. Is Kelsey Mitchell the misunderstood vet or the unexpected villain of the season? Has Caitlin Clark already taken over this team? Or is there still a power struggle happening behind the scenes? And don't forget to subscribe for more drama, more twists, and more unfiltered tea from the world of sports meltdowns. Because if this season's taught us anything, it's that the court may be where the points get scored, but the real game, it's always in the chaos. You could hear the silence when it happened. One sentence, one locker room mic drop, and suddenly, Kelsey Mitchell went from team leader to the eye of the storm. After a season full of grit, comeback wins, and historic plays, the Indiana Fever were finally looking like a serious playoff team. And then, in a post-game moment that should have been all about unity, Mitchell decided to make it about her. Now look, Kelsey Mitchell has had an incredible season. No one's denying that. She's scoring like it's her full-time job, which, fair it is. And for the first time in franchise history, she's averaging over 20 points per game. But what good is all that stat sheet flexing if your locker room speech lands like a passive-aggressive tweet? Here's the thing. The Fever weren't supposed to be contenders this year. They had the injuries, the media pressure, and the constant circus that follows a certain generational rookie. And yet, through it all, they pulled themselves together. Not because Kelsey Mitchell was playing hero ball, but because of what Caitlin Clark brought to the table. Yeah, we said it. Because while Mitchell might be chasing milestones, Clark was out here quietly transforming the entire identity of this team. Floor general, media darling, the engine of the offense. CC didn't just play. She elevated everyone around her. You could see it in the way the ball moved. The spacing improved. The defense hustled harder. Caitlin's impact wasn't always loud, but it was loud enough to shift the culture. So, when Mitchell decided to deliver a look-at-us-now locker room monologue, one that conspicuously skipped any mention of Clark or the other injured teammates, fans didn't just raise eyebrows. They full-on squinted. Was this a victory lap or a veiled power play? Let's rewind a bit. Early in the season, the Fever were struggling. Like, bottom 5 in the league struggling. And to be fair, the roster wasn't exactly stable. Injuries were stacking up like dirty laundry. Caitlin Clark was battling fatigue and taking elbows every other game. Lexi Ho? Out. Nalissa Smith? In and out. Aaliyah Boston had moments, but she couldn't carry the weight alone. It should have been the kind of downward spiral that ends in a lottery pick. But then, something shifted. Clark started taking over. Her playmaking went nuclear. She was dropping 25-foot daggers and still finding ways to dime her teammates like she had eyes in the back of her head. And you could feel the team responding. Odyssey Sims got a boost. Aerial Powers started playing with confidence. Even Mitchell started benefiting, getting better looks, more spacing, fewer double teams. The Caitlin effect was real, whether anyone wanted to admit it or not. And that's what makes Mitchell's recent locker room comments feel off. Instead of praising the full team effort or recognizing the way this roster came together during adversity, she framed it as a battle she'd been personally winning for years. Sis, we get it. She's been here through the dark days. She survived coaching changes, losing seasons, and plenty of media silence. But leadership isn't just about who's been here the longest. It's about what you do when the spotlight isn't on you. And the truth is, when Caitlin Clark was in the spotlight, Kelsey didn't always seem comfortable sharing it. This whole season has felt like a quiet tug-of-war between old guard and new blood. On one side, you've got the vets, the players who've been grinding for years, waiting for their moment. On the other, you've got Caitlin Clark, NCAA phenom, fan magnet, the reason half the country started watching Fever games in the first place. And while most of the teams seem to understand the opportunity here, both for wins and for legacy, Mitchell gave off big, I was here first energy. There were subtle signs, body language during timeouts, icy post-game interviews, plays where the ball should have swung to Clark, but somehow didn't. At first, fans chalked it up to chemistry issues. New teammates, different systems, whatever. But now, after this little locker room speech, it's kind of impossible not to see the shade. And let's talk about that speech for a second. It was framed as a moment of triumph. Mitchell standing in front of her team after a huge win, cameras rolling, voice shaking a little as she talked about all the years we were counted out. On paper, it sounds inspiring, but what she didn't say spoke volumes. No shout-out to the rookies. No acknowledgement of Clark's impact. Not even a nod to the fact that half the core was still out with injuries. It was self-mythologizing in real time. Like, look what I built. Girl, what? This isn't a solo sport. You don't get to rewrite the narrative mid-season just because the vibes are better now. And it's especially wild to drop that kind of monologue right after Clark had been sidelined and the team still rallied to win because they've been galvanized by the culture she helped create. Let's be real. Kelsey Mitchell is a baller. No one is denying her skills. But leadership isn't just about points and minutes. It's about presence. And Caitlin Clark, despite being a rookie, brought that intangible, we're going to win this together, energy that so many veterans never quite figure out. Clark never made it about her. Even when she was a top scorer. Even when she was getting fouled into the third row. Even when headlines were spinning around her 24/7. She kept showing up, hyping her teammates, and making smart plays. Meanwhile, Mitchell seemed to be keeping score, not on the court, but in the locker room politics. It's ironic, isn't it? The Fever finally have a winning season. They're first since 2015. They've made national headlines, sold out games, and developed real playoff chemistry. But instead of riding that wave as a united front, we're now here dissecting a tone-deaf speech and a subtle riff that no one wanted to talk about until now. Let's be clear, this isn't about hating on Mitchell. It's about what leadership looks like when it matters. Fans aren't upset because she spoke with emotion. They're upset because it sounded like a claim, not a celebration. Like she was planting her flag on a hill that, frankly, Caitlin Clark helped build. The real ones see it. Clark changed the energy of this team. She brought visibility, strategy, and poise. And most importantly, she brought the future. This team isn't going back to irrelevance anytime soon, and that's in large part because of her. The league is watching. The fans are invested. The playoffs are in reach. And yet, the energy feels off. Because someone couldn't let go of the past long enough to acknowledge the shift. So, where do we go from here? Well, if the Fever want to make a real playoff run, and not just a cute one, they need to clean this up. Fast. Internal drama, silent beefs. I was here first mindsets. That stuff sinks teams in the postseason. You don't beat seasoned playoff squads with ego. You beat them with chemistry, with humility, with trust. Right now, that means someone, probably Kelsey Mitchell, needs to do a little soul searching, maybe even some teammate checking. Because if she can channel her fire into leading this team without undermining what others bring to the table, then maybe, this squad has a shot at something more than just a moral victory. And to the fans, you've seen what this team can be when they play as one. You watch Clark draw defenders, make impossible passes, and absorb so much pressure so her teammates could shine. You've seen Odyssey Sim step up, Lexi Hull go full beast mode, Aerial Powers drop buckets out of nowhere. This team can win, but not if they keep tripping over ego on the way to the top. So here's your mock moral today. In sports, as in life, growth doesn't always come from the loudest voice in the room. Sometimes it comes from the one who just passes the ball. If you got thoughts, and oh, we know you do, drop them in the comments. Are we witnessing a team on the rise, or a powder keg waiting to blow? And who do you think is the real MVP of this Fever season? Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more chaos, clapbacks, and courtside tea. Because trust us, this story, it's far from over.